రికార్డ్ అవుతుందా ఇప్పుడు?
ప్రేయర్ చేస్తున్నాడు.
రికార్డ్ అవుతుంది అనుకుంటా. ఓకే, రీడింగ్ రికార్డ్ అవుతుందా?
కానీ స్పీచ్
అవుతుందా? ఓకే. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Beloved God, help us all to love you more and more, and still at more, till we become worthy of union with you. And help us all to hold fast to Baba's Daman till the day end. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Meher Baba ki jai. Baba. So I'm going to use English as the language.
Yes.
And because we can use it to give to others.
Oh no. Yes. వాళ్ళు స్వచ్ఛమైన తెలుగులో మాట్లాడతారు చంటి. We have to think twice.
చాలా మంచి డిస్కషన్.
బాగా చెప్పారు. వెరీ గుడ్ డిస్కషన్. రవి వినే కదా అది కూడా వాళ్ళు మన రఘుపతిరావు గారు కూడా ఉన్నారు. అందరు తెలుగు మాట్లాడతారు స్వచ్ఛం.
రఘుపతిరావు గారు కూడా ఉన్నారు కదా,
ఉన్నారు. చాలా చక్కగా డిస్క్రైబ్
చేశారు. రాజు ఒక ఆయన
ఇంగ్లీష్ లో ఆయన కళ్యాణ్ వీళ్ళందరూ ఉన్నారు. నాగేశ్వరరావు గారు, గోపి,
లక్ష్మి.
సరే, అందరూ మ్యూట్ చేసి ఇఫ్ యూ హ్యావ్ ఎనీ క్వశ్చన్స్ ప్లీజ్ రైట్ డౌన్ అండ్ we will talk at the end because I'm recording it, and we can use this recording to give to others who use it. Number of people, they're interested to know. Okay, so I'm going to open my.
ఒకవేళ ఇప్పుడు క్వశ్చన్స్ రాలేదనుకో నెక్స్ట్ వీక్ కూడా అడగచ్చా? నెక్స్ట్ వీక్ క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్సర్ సెషన్ విని డైజెస్ట్ చేసుకునే తర్వాత.
But mute, everybody mute. I'm going to start. You can ask me questions whenever you want. That is fine. Sorry, not this one. This is the wrong. So this is, we already talked about part 1, God Speaks, about a couple of months ago. There Baba talked about all the fundamentals. What is sanskaras, what is grass body, grass sanskaras, grass world, subtle and mental. And finally, in that chapter, Baba highlighted that drop, when it is separated from the ocean, it's separated, it's a drop. But the location of this drop is in the ocean itself. If you take the God state, Parabrahma state, it's not possible for us to get any idea what is this Parabrahma state. The closest we can imagine is the ocean. We all have the experience of seeing an ocean. When we stand near the beach, we can see the shore and we cannot see the other side of the ocean. So Baba said, just imagine the ocean is shoreless. Let's take out our shore boundary in our imagination. Look at ocean itself. When you are, let's say you're going on a boat or you're going on a cruise, it goes into the middle of the ocean and you don't see any shores at all. You know that you are in a cruise ship, but you see the horizon. That's all there is to it. If you imagine that to be God, and if you take one drop in the ocean, that drop is not different from the ocean itself. But what happens is it imagines that it is different. So here Baba talks about the initial urge and the journey of evolving consciousness, how the consciousness is evolved with respect to the sanskaras and bodies, the physical bodies. Oh, this is not the part I want to. Oh, yeah, part two. Yeah. I wrote some notes. This is only to help understand the intellectual part of this chapter. But the most important thing is you need to open that book, read every sentence, every word carefully with wholehearted love for Baba. Only that will take you to the higher level of understanding. And that is important. And the sentences are not easy, they're not simple. So we use always simple language. Hey, I want to have coffee. Let's eat. Uh, let's go out. It's, always we use short sentences, but Baba used complete sentences with the complete meaning, and the same idea is repeated so that we get concrete understanding of what Baba wants to convey. So Baba said he packed it with spiritual energy. By the struggle of understanding that struggle will take us to higher states of our own self. So with that, I will start the second part, the initial urge and the journey of evolving consciousness. So in summary, so we always we get a question, who am I? For a lot of people, they may not have this question, who am I? I am, but if you ask somebody, what do you say? I am Ravi. I am this body. I am this mind. That's what we say. Usually people say. But what happens after going through number of lifetimes, number of all these experiences of suffering and happiness, opposite experiences, what happens? All this binding becomes loose. When the binding becomes loose, we start thinking. We don't focus anymore on these worldly experiences. Who am I? From where did I come from? After this, where do I go? I know we all die. We all leave the body. Where do I go? And what is this creation? What happens to creation when I die? From where did this start? And how did it start? It's all the questions and so on. And who is this God? We all think we used to think, oh, it's a waste of time. Let's focus on our education, how to earn money. That's all our thinking. It's all ignorance. And we'll see these basic details in this question. So Baba started out with, imagine you are a drop in an ocean. It's all ocean and there is no boundary, shoreless ocean. And the ocean is in a tranquil state. Nothing is happening, very calm, enjoying not even enjoying, nothing's happening, just calm. Is there a bliss? There is no bliss. Is there consciousness? There is no consciousness. There is no consciousness? Yes, there is consciousness. Is there a bliss? No, there is a bliss. Is there no bliss? No, 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 it is not that. It's beyond our conception. We are talking about the contrary things. So, how does it happen? We know only these dual natures. Either I'm happy or not happy. Either I'm suffering or not suffering. But what is this? Suffering versus happiness and existence, non-existence, all these things we cannot understand. We can never understand that until we experience that stage. And what happened? In this tranquil state of the ocean, there was a impulse. There was a stir. And the stir, what happened? Created a wave. And the wave, with the wave, we know what is this wave. We have seen them. And with this commotion, so many bubbles are formed. Some infinite number of bubbles are formed. And what happens? Not bubbles, sorry, drops. Drops are formed. But those drops also have bubbles. A drop inside and a bubble outside. A drop is nothing but the same ocean. It went into as a drop in the form of drop. But the bubble is the imagination. Imagining that I am separate from the ocean. And this is the drop. And let's say this is the bubble. And all these bubbles, when they go inside, they break open. Somebody is going to help us to break it open. And then we become one with the ocean. And we experience again this tranquil ocean. And we think nothing ever happened. It's all just an dream. We had a dream. And the dream was, I was Ravi, I was Geeta, I was this, that. And then when we woke up, oh, is it just a dream? Nothing. I'm always there. So the same thing I'll say in a different way. The beyond state of God wants to know who he is. See, he's got that infinite power, knowledge, and bliss, but he doesn't know who he is. He just wants to know. It's just a game. He wants to play a game. We want to have some fun. We go to movie theater. We sit there, and when the switch is on, then the operator turns on the switch and lights and everything. The movie is focused. The reel is going, and the movie is focused on the screen, and we get involved in that movie. Hero, heroine, villain, this fight, that, this, all for the 2.5 hours. There's so much involved. We forget ourselves. When the movie is over, the operator turns off the switch. Then we come to know, we're in the movie. Let's go home and eat. That's what we do. Same thing. God also is having fun. So this beyond state of God wants to know who he is. And when it realized it wants to know who he is, it came into the duality. Who am I? And the consciousness started. This is the first sanskara. The consciousness has to experience this sanskara. And in duality, what happens to this consciousness is divided into conscious God and unconscious God. And this unconscious God wants to know what is it to be like being united with the God state. So it goes through a different stages: evolution, reincarnation, and involution, process of involution. And then these both will combine, and pretty soon it experiences the God realization and gets the answer with the qualification, with the ability to answer to the question, who am I? I am God. And goes back to the beyond state of God, and it is always there. It never happened. It's all just like how we think it's a dream. It's just a dream. There's no time. It's not that I was there before the dream. I am there during the dream. I will be there during the dream. It's not that. Is always there. Thankful state. That is the gist of this whole God Speaks. The whole God Speaks talks about this gist. We all know that. So let's dive into this. God Speaks. And page 8. Let us take one conscious soul. One drop. In the beginning, the soul had no impressions, no sanskaras, and no consciousness. At this stage, the soul had no gross body, no subtle body, no mental body. Because only the existence of impressions, sanskaras, can exist existence of the body. If you have gross impressions, then only you can give existence to the gross body. Same is true for the subtle and subtle bodies and mental bodies. And only the existence of these bodies can make possible the existence of gross, subtle, and mental worlds. Hence, in the beginning, the soul had no consciousness of gross, subtle, and mental bodies and was also unconscious of its own self. And the soul then naturally had no experience of the gross, subtle, and mental worlds, and also had no experience of the Paramatma, over soul. It's just rudimentary state. So the soul in the beginning is unconscious of self. So what happened? I'll put some questions and give you the answers. That way you'll understand. In the beginning, what is the state of the soul? If you ask yourself a question, without impressions, can you have a physical body? If you have gross sanskaras, what kind of body do you have? And in what world do you live in? If you have gross sanskaras, do you still have subtle and mental bodies? If you are experiencing gross world, do you simultaneously have subtle world and mental world? What's the reason? So answer for that is answer for all these questions we addressed till now. So the grass sanskar, if you have grass sanskaras, you have grass body. And what kind of world do we live in? Grass world. Same thing. If you have grass sanskaras, we still have subtle body and mental body, but they are not active. They are very, very in a rudimentary stage. Yes, we use energy from the subtle world, subtle body, but use energy for walking almost like not 1% compared to its ability it has. The ability is what we have. And also mental body, our sanskaras are stored, memories are there. We think, we experience feelings, we use intellect, but that is nothing compared to its ability of the mental body. And if you are experiencing the God West, do you simultaneously have subtle world and mental world? No, we don't. Only the sanskaras, what we have, how they are being used, that determines what kind of world do you live in. If somebody slaps you, if you feel like, I want to slap back to him, that is gross. If you feel lust, if you feel anger, if you feel lust, anger, greed, all these things are in the grass. All these things are also there in the subtle world and the mental world, but in the subtle world, almost half of it. That's what Baba said. And in the mental world, they are there, but they are never active because all the sanskaras are gone. They are there because we are still in the creation consciousness, and they don't play a role at all. To the first earth. So this tranquil state, what happened? The soul, which is infinite, with no impressions and in tranquil state, reverberated with an impulse. Reverberated with an impulse. See, when you pluck a string of the guitar, what happens? The string vibrates. These vibrations, what happens? There's a big wooden board through the hole. If you close the hole, you cannot hear. If there's no hole there, because the sound waves have to go inside this box, they reverberate and gives a sound of the string. That is the reverberation. Another example is, we know when we are young, if you go to the lake, if you have stones, if you throw it, it forms ripples. These are also reverberation. Just to get some idea What is a reverberation? So something has to happen. You have to have a pick, striker, to strike the string to create the vibrations. Just like that, when you throw a stone, the reverberations happen in the lake. So something happened in the ocean that created reverberated. That is the impulse. So what is this, the impulse? What caused it to reverberate? That is the first urge. Remember, we took only one drop soul. What happened? It was calm, no knowledge, nothing. Then, because the calmness was disturbed by the first urge. The first urge is to know itself. So, what does it mean? Who am I? That is the meaning of this first urge. And this first, why did it come? Because it is latent in the Parama. It is latent and it happens, and then it goes into the dark state. That is the latency. What is this called? This first urge is called the whim, the divine whim. Whim is nothing but desire that comes in our but our desires come because of the sanskaras. The divine whim, how why does the divine whim comes? So for this part, I went into the another book called Beams from Meher Baba, Beams from Meher Baba from Spiritual Panorama, written by Ivy Juice. So when Baba gave God Speaks to Ivy Juice and Don Stevens to edit it and make it into a book, Ivy Juice had some questions. So she came back to Baba and asked. And Baba gave some explanations. That she made it into Beams. Very beautiful book. Lot of great, very small book. We all read it, and that needs to be read again and again so that the things will be uh, into our system, goes into our system. So the first chapter is Vim. Vim, the Vim from the beyond. So Paramatma seeks to know itself. Paramatma state seeks to know itself. Why does it do? We have this mind, right? We always are curious. Why did it do? We ask questions. It is of no use to ask why it does so. That is the answer Baba gave. It just does. No reason or rhyme. Suddenly, of course, we have this sanskaras. That's why we had a good food and spicy food, and around 3 o'clock we feel like making our tongue sweeter. Let's eat some ice cream. We all agree, and we brought ice cream and ate. Why did we think about it to have this desire? Why did it come at 3 o'clock? No reason. Just we may tell the reason is sanskaras, or we ate spicy food, all these our own reasons, but why did this whim, desire came? No reason. For God also, just like that, there is no reason or rhyme for this whim. The initial whim is completely independent of reason, intellect, or imagination. The plain truth about this initial urge to know itself is best called a whim. A whim. Whims and fancies. That is the words we use, right? To just have some. The first whim to know instantaneously implies a duality, right? I want to know who am I. That is an impression. We know that we just read as an impression. That means it's in duality. Duality means two separate aspects. We are in duality, and we have two separate aspects: high and low, small and big, happy and happy, good and bad. ఈయన చాలా మంచివాడు, పక్కన ఆయన మాత్రం కొంచెం అనుమానం. That man is happy. He is a good man. He is not so and so person is not a good man. We have our mind works like that. In a duality. We don't know. We rarely use our absoluteness. We always use this duality. Just like that, the whim also breaks into two separate aspects of infinite. What are these two aspects? One is infinite consciousness, and the second is the infinite unconsciousness. There's no problem with the infinite consciousness, but there is a problem with the infinite unconsciousness. What is the problem? The problem is it's unconscious. That means it wants to know. It wants to be conscious. That replies comes after this infinite unconsciousness. The infinite unconsciousness tries to unite with infinite consciousness. That's all there is. Whose consciousness is this? It belongs to God. So God, who is unconscious, wants to unite with consciousness of God. So it's all happening within the God. God wants to know himself, who he is. The rest of it is all nothing. This itself is nothing. Both aspects are precipitated by whim. The whim of the infinite is in a way comparable to an infinite question, calling forth an infinite answer. The question was, who am I? And the answer is, I am God. Now let's come back to God Speaks, page 9. So in the infinite, both finite and infinite are included. In our dual world, finite and infinite are opposites, but the world of reality does not have reality. God doesn't have duality. Only we have duality. Hence, finite is also included in finite, in Paramatma. That is why, because there is no duality, they're not opposite in God's state. They are, yeah, finite also exists in the God state, but that is part of that infinite. See, knowledge is God, full knowledge. What about ignorance? That is also part of the knowledge. Paramatma is everything, and nothing is also included in everything. So let's come back to this first urge was most finite. The most finite first urge was of the infinite ocean Paramatma. Where is all this happening? Within the Paramatma. That's why, for our understanding, the God speaks in the 9th chapter. Baba said, Parabrahma state is number 1. The second stage is Parabrahma state. Why did he divide God into 2 states? For our understanding. That God is really in 2 different states. We don't know how that happens, but for our understanding, that is separate and this is separate. That is how we understand. What it is, we'll understand once we become God. Until then, we'll just take it for granted because that's the only tool we have is the mind, intellect. And the manifestation of this latent, most finite first urge of the infinite was restricted to a most finite point in the infinite unlimited ocean. The most finite point of the manifestation of the first urge was also unlimited, but that happens later on. Initially, we are totally ignorant. We are very finite. But our mind goes on expanding, right? When we reach a stage almost infinite, then we get not infinite, but almost. We are almost. Let's say we are in the sixth plane. We know how to feel. We can see God. Our limitedness is decreased. Our horizons of the mind expanded to that level. That's why with the divine, all our sanskaras are gone. Most of the sanskaras are gone. I am there, but I can see God. I see God. I feel God. Feelings are there. That is how it becomes unlimited, but not right at the beginning. That is why he said the most finite point of manifestation of the first urge was also unlimited. To this most finite point of manifestation of the first urge, also most finite, the shadow of the infinite gradually appeared and went on expanding. This most finite point of manifestation of the latent first urge is called home point or creation point, or in Sufi language, in Persian language, it's called Ahur point. In Hinduism, we call it Om. See, that's what it means. This point came out of nothing and is unlimited. In the infinite, both finite and infinite are included. We already talked about it. So how did the creation started, and from where did all these souls came from? That I deviated from God speaks, went into the nothing and the everything. In the ocean of nothing, there was a moment which we already talked about as reverberations, first urge, whim. That's the same thing, moment. In infinite intelligence and in nothing and everything, uh, they talk about movement. Because of this moment, creation started in home points. Because of this moment, numberless drops started coming out of nothing. There were so many souls, right? God is one, but why are these so many souls? That this is the question some people may have. God is one, but why are we so many? We say we are in God and we are same as God. But why so many different? Baba answered, God is infinite and opposite of infinite is finite. There is one. What is opposite of one? Many. So God is infinite. Opposite is finite. They are of one. This is in the Nothing and Everything by Bhava Kalchari. The first touch, counterpart of infinite. Page 9. Simultaneously with the reverberations of the first urge, the most gross first impression emerged. First impression. The impression can be called for our understanding. Who am I? Because of this most gross first impression of the first urge, the infinite soul experienced for the first time. What is this experience? Right? The first experience of the infinite soul was that it, that means soul, experienced a contrariety in its identity with this infinite, impressionless, unconscious state of God. In simple words, the contrariety is I'm not you. That is the contrariety. Similarity is I'm you. That is similarity. I'm you. You and I are one. But contrariety is you are different, I am different. That separateness was created at this point, this first impression. Okay, this is very, very important to understand. Impression is the cause of the ignorance. This experience of contrariety affected changeableness in the eternal, indivisible stability of the infinite soul. Remember, I was telling you it was a tranquil state, and this contrariety, what happened, that affected the changeableness in the infinite soul, eternal, indivisible stability of the soul. And what happened? Spontaneously, there occurred a sort of eruption. This eruption disturbed the indivisible voice in the God state, Parabrahma state, or Paramatma state. And this eruption caused the unconscious tranquility of the infinite soul with a recoil or tremendous shock, big shock. When you're in deep sleep, somebody wakes you up. It happens, you're like a shock, right? You wake up with what? Because you are in a different mood. The mood was changed to a different state of awake. Then you experience shock. That kind of a shock the God state experienced. This caused the emergence of the first consciousness. See, we have the sanskara created, and now there's a shock. And what did it create? It created the consciousness. What is this consciousness? It is of the unconscious part of the God. This is our consciousness. See, you think you're God? You don't feel that, you don't experience as a God, but you experience as a human being. You experience that you are the body. You experience that you are mind. That consciousness we are talking about. And it is of unconscious part of Paramatma. That's what it is. What did it experience? Okay, sorry. Simultaneously, at that instant, the unconsciousness of the infinite soul actually experienced most finite first consciousness of the most first gross first impression. It experienced the consciousness, temporary consciousness it came, experienced the first impression. What is that impression? The soul is conscious of the impressions, then the soul must necessarily experience these impressions. Not plural, but if the soul is conscious of the impression, not a s. That's also true, but for now in our situation, impression, then the soul must be necessarily experienced. And in order to experience the impression, the consciousness of the soul, how does the consciousness experience the soul? It has to have through a proper media. This is, the system has to be there. We need to go to somewhere, Elur. How do we go to Elur? We need to have a vehicle to go, either bus or a car or cycle, something. So we need a proper media. The first consciousness of the indivisible soul experiencing the first impression through the first medium creates a tendency in the soul to associate and identify its eternal, infinite self with the first form. Thus, the consciousness gained by the unconscious soul does not experience reality through unity and identity with the oversoul. Instead, it experiences illusion through duality and identity with the gross form, multiplying diverse, innumerable impressions in a series of experiences while associating with the gross form and gradually gaining or evolving more and more consciousness. Okay, I'm going to read this again. Uh, I should have I should have broken it into different pieces, but I think you understand. The consciousness gained by the unconscious soul does not experience reality. Instead, what happens? It's not qualified, it's not fit, it doesn't have equipment to experience the oversoul, the conscious part of it. It's like oil and water, but both have to merge. So it has to become qualified. It is ignorant. What does it need? It needs knowledge. Knowledge is the critical aspect, the unconsciousness of the soul need to experience the conscious part of the soul. Same, its own self. So instead of experience our soul, it experiences the illusion. What is the illusion? It is uh, through duality, an identity with the gross forms, multiplying diverse, innumerable impressions. So what happens? It says, "Hey, who are you? I'm a stone. Oh, you're a stone? Are you God? No, I'm not God. I'm this stone. What stone is that? I'm white stone. Oh, really? You're not God. So now, after some time, no, 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 I'm not a white stone. Let me take up a different form. Let me see what happens. The consciousness drives this body, the soul, to take up a new body, a black stone. Oh, are you a white stone or a black stone? Now I'm black stone. What about white stone? Oh, that was past. So this goes on multiplying, domino effect. One impression causes more impressions. So it experiences a series of experiences because of the false answers. It creates sanskaras. Who experiences sanskaras? The consciousness experiences sanskaras. Can we not use the sanskaras? No, they are needed. Even for our knowledge, we need sanskaras. What do we do by reading God speaks? We are creating sanskaras. By devotion, we are creating sanskaras. By love, we are creating sanskaras. But these sanskaras are very, very needed for us to get rid of our ignorance, our prayers, our being kind, our loving. All these things are needed. We also create the sanskaras, but those are needed sanskaras, useful sanskaras. But we also, unfortunately, our mind is so versatile that it picks up garbages too. Out of garbage we pick up. We get involved in unnecessary things that we don't need it because we pay attention to all these unnecessary things. We think it's a relaxation, right? It's what we are doing is we are creating uh, obstructive sanskaras. Obstructive means the main goal of the consciousness is to reach that God state. That is the goal and that is the reality. But in the name of relaxation, in the name of diversion, in the name of diversity, uh, diversity or stress relief, we use all the other garbage we collect. And what happens? This garbage come in the obstruction of our journey. In order to understand more clearly and concretely how the consciousness gained by the soul gradually develops through the process of evolution, let's examine that state of the conscious soul where the consciousness of the soul associates itself with the stone form as the most finite and most gross medium. And the soul thus begins to identify itself as a stone. Okay? So actually, the consciousness of the soul utilizes the stone form only after going through 7 major different kinds of gaseous forms, which cannot be grasped by ordinary human beings. In Om point, which came out of nothing of Paramatma, came innumerable drops. How did they come? They come through movement in the Om point. So the drops, the journey started. All these drops, the journey started. Starts traveling in a train, let's say train. And where do they go? First, they go to the mental world. In the mental world, they spend, I believe, 700,000. That means 7 lakh years. Is this time belong to our time? We have a gross time. And Baba said, the time in subtle world is different. The time in mental world is different. And what does this 700 years mean? I don't know. It is given in the nothing and everything. And what happens? One more thing happens in this world when the train is traveling. Some of these drops gets dropped off in the journey and stay back in the mental world. And what are those drops? They become archangels. So for spiritual work, God uses them. The perfect masters use them in the spiritual work. They are called archangels. See, Prophet Muhammad used it in his expositions. He said, I'm getting information from the Archangel Gabriel. So Gabriel is one name of a position in the Archangel. So that's how Baba mentioned a number of times how he uses these agents for his work. So they work as agents. After passing through this time in the mental world, what happens? The whole train goes through the subtle world. And in the subtle world, these experience 276 different subtle gaseous states in the subtle world. And they also spend 7 lakh years. It takes about 7 lakh years also to pass to the subtle world. Then the soul moves into the grass world. Okay? In the grass world, what it is written in the nothing and everything is first the proton is created. The soul experiences a proton, and then as an electron, and then combinedly a hydrogen atom. And so many eons and eons after experiencing hydrogen, it creates an atom. And after eons and eons experience as an atom, it combines with so many atoms to become a dust particle. And the dust particle, after eons and years of combining with the other dust particles, they become stone. That part we will continue. If it's too much, it's too much if I continue with the same part because it's too a lot of technical details. That is why I love to end with this talk with God alone is real. We are all one. And as we are permanently lodged in the divine beloved, we are all one. Let's try to see God in everyone and love everyone. Baba said, hold on to my Daman. Remember me wholeheartedly and constantly. This is the love. How do we show love? By remembering him with a feeling of love. Baba said, I will help you. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Adandi, that is the talk. So I will stop recording. How much time did it take?